Okay. So around this time, a few things happen. The first is that I realized I didn't need to just do the chicken nuggets for the YouTube videos, and that French fries did just as well. And what I had done was I would get, a large French fries and put a bunch of ketchup on the tray and start recording, dunk one French fry in ketchup, stop recording, eat the French fry, and keep doing that through the whole container of French fries. You'd get a lot of videos very quickly at a very low cost. And they'd get a lot of views. But I'd get sick from eating so much ketchup. And I didn't want to be eating all this junk every day anyway in the first place. Because at this point I was just eating it basically to have videos just so I could monetize all this stuff that I'd worked so hard on that had, it definitely was stupider. We're definitely sticking with the original mission of how could we make this stupider, but I don't know that I was that engaged with the level of stupidity at that point. At that point, it was almost like a microcosm of Hollywood. Like, how could I just make more videos cheaper that fit in with the aesthetic and that were shockingly, people were watching in record numbers. And then I had this accidental epiphany of making it even stupider. I realized that all I had to do was ask for a tray at McDonald's, order a large French fries, and record myself dumping the French fries out of the container onto the tray. And that little clip did really well. And then I just put all the French fries back in the container and film it again. And then I'd put all the French fries back in the container and film it again. And so I could get a lot of videos out of that same container of French fries, actually more than if I were consuming the fries one at a time. It was sort of an endless number of videos. Then I'd eat the cold French fries without any ketchup and move on. And that went on for a while. But I guess, according to my notes here, I discovered that worked just as well on January 21st, 2023. And also I realized around that time that just opening containers with food in it did great too. Like, you could just order a Big Mac or whatever and open the box and just show the Big Mac. And you could call the video Big Mac. And it would get tens of thousands of views. With absolutely nothing to it, which it's hard to even know if that was stupider than the previous videos or if that was less stupid than the previous videos. It's really hard to know sometimes. I just felt like I was almost trolling myself at this point. Now it's March of 2023. March 4th, 2023. And I have intentionally gone to the Los Angeles Public Library to sign up for the Octavia Lab. And that is a lot of public libraries have it. It's like a maker lab. And it was unrelated to anything to do with fast food. I can't even remember what my original interest in using the lab was at this point, but anyway, the point is just that on that date, I signed up for that lab. On April 27th, 2023, McDonald's released their Big Mac sauce in individual packets. It's something they had never done before. And because of my experience that we discussed earlier with all of the other limited time sauce releases, I had it really down again, and I was able to acquire a large number of these Big Mac sauces with very little effort, thankfully. Oh, one thing I'd like to talk about that I discovered with buying all of the sauces, not just the limited edition ones, but something I learned that was interesting and surprising. If you go in a fast food restaurant and you say, I'm willing to pay, but I need to get 40 cups of sauce. They'll get a bag and they'll fill it with the sauce and they'll hand it to you, and you'll get it home and discover that many of the sauces the lids have been torn by the plastic in the other lids, or they've just thrown them in such a way that they've leaked everywhere and you've got this giant mess on your hands and you've paid for it. So I very quickly, and this is going back now almost 2 years before this incident that we're talking about now or whatever, when I'd go in the store and buy a bunch of sauces, I'd then go to a table in the restaurant and immediately take them out of the bag and sort them and inspect them meticulously, because you'd almost always have to return several of them, if not half or all of them, because they are leaking everywhere. And then I'd repackage them. I'd either bring plastic shoe boxes with me, or I'd have some kind of container that was appropriate for transporting them so that they wouldn't break or leak on the way home. And the Big Mac sauces, because I knew there was a limited number of them and everything else, I remember being extra neurotic, saying to them, you just look crazy. You're walking in a McDonald's and going, you've got this Big Mac sauce. I'd like to buy 40 of them. And they go, you can't buy 40 of them. And, and you have to negotiate with them so they'll sell you 40 of them. Sometimes you go and you go, I'd like to buy 100. And they go, you can't get 100. We can give you 20 or 30 or 40, which is what you really wanted in the first place. But I remember saying, please be super careful when you put them in the bag. Don't even put them in a bag. Just give them to me on a tray and then give me the bags on the side. You look like a absolute lunatic. And I'm sure they thought I was going to take them home and pray to them or something. I don't know. But that was something I failed to mention earlier that I wanted to mention while I thought of it. So, didn't really have a concept for the Big Mac video other than what can we do that we haven't done yet that's, stupider than stupid. So I went to that same McDonald's in Downey that I shot the original Big Mac video at on May 1st, sat at the same table. I ordered a Big Mac with extra sauce on it. And then I had brought all these sauces with me, and I proceeded to pour them one at a time on the burger till it was a big mess. And things had changed, with everything. So I'm shooting with two cameras in the McDonald's, one at 16 by 9 and one at 9 by 16. And there are these two guys eating at the table across from me, and they're just gluttonous. They're just inhaling everything and they just look, if it's a painting, they look like who you'd want to see in the painting, right? Of people gorging themselves at McDonald's. But because everything's starting to change with all of this, I'm already thinking about how we're going to use this video in a more artistic way. I don't think I even put a narration on it. I think I may have just left the clip as it was. Maybe I put a narration on it. I don't even remember anymore. Sorry, Axel's making noise, because that's his job. Ax. So at this point, I'd started going to these open screen events in South Pasadena where anyone could bring any kind of video they had made that was 10 minutes or less, and everyone sat there and watched everybody else's videos. And it went on for a year, and I went every single month, and it was one of the best things I've ever gone to in my entire life. I loved it so much. And I was bringing the cartoon, I was bringing other things I had made that I wanted to share that I was working on. Sometimes I was making videos just specifically to bring there different kinds of video collages, and I was having so much fun with it. And I kind of knew, like, as I was filming this, like, oh, I'm bringing this. Like, this, it was 10 minutes. I kept it down to 10 minutes, like 9 minutes and change. And everyone there said it was the most perfect video for an open screen that they had ever seen. Like, it was just the perfect video for that. And so I have to say, of all the moments through all of everything that happened over the course of Fast Food Legend, seeing the newspaper article and sitting in the South Pasadena Public Library with 40 strangers watching this Big Mac video for 10 minutes were pretty much the highlights, I think, for me. Anyway, sometime between there, around May 1st, I would have discovered, maybe I got an email or something from the Octavia lab, that they had gotten a wide format printer in 2 locations of the library, and that you could use each location once a week and print a free poster, 24 by 36 maximum size, for free. And I'd always wanted to make posters, and I had never really thought about it much. I mean, I had designed lots of things on InDesign when I was at FIT that I thought would be posters, but, you know, I lived in small apartments, and I would never spend money printing a poster unless I had a reason to. And I don't know. It never got to me to make a poster. I've read all of the books, and I've studied all that stuff, but just, I don't know why I never I guess I did make a poster when I took graphic design at Parsons. I must have made some kind of posters, but I don't remember exactly. Anyway, so I've decided I'm going to make some posters just because I can make them for free. Why not? And I've taken that Photoshop class. And what I started doing was taking some of the Instagram collages I had made, going back to them, going back to the source materials, because those Instagram collages are 1x1 squares. So I needed to go get the source materials again and remake those collages in a 9x16 or whatever, 24 by 36 shape. And the first one I did, I don't remember if it was an Instagram collage or not, was this chicken sandwich. It had been a video I made where I went to every chain, McDonald's, Arby's, Burger King, Wendy's, and bought a Chick-fil-A. I bought a chicken sandwich at all of them. And I made this monstrosity where I stacked them on top of each other with an egg from an Egg McMuffin, which was supposed to be a form of symbolism. I was not a chicken and an egg symbolism, which is what you would think, but symbolism in that I was able to acquire lunch and breakfast assets at the same time, which was a form of boasting in the piece. And in the original, I've got a skewer running through all of them because it's so high, and my hand holding the skewer, which I photoshopped out. And just looking at this image on a white background was kind of stunning and interesting, but it wasn't quite there. And I got out my copy of Jansen's History of Art, just looking for ideas, flipping through, and I don't know what struck me about the death of Chatterton as I was thinking about it, but I got a digital copy of it, and I photoshopped out Chatterton and put at the bottom of this mountain of chicken sandwiches, and it just something about that image just struck me, especially with the egg sticking out of the bottom or whatever. It was just, I had never quite seen that. And I thought, well, if I haven't seen it, that's good. I like it. It didn't really have a point, to be honest with you. It was very much open to interpretation. I just thought, I don't know, it looks cool, and I get to print a poster, so let's see how it looks as a poster. hang on. Then I thought, well, what if it's going to be a poster for an imaginary art exhibit? Like, I'd like to format this as sort of me demonstrating that I've taken this stupidity, this exercise in stupidity, and I've turned it into something real. And it was just like a mock-up for an art show that didn't exist. And I asked a friend what we should call the gallery. I had the name of the show in my head, which was Everything is Fine But Nothing is Okay. And I think I took that from, I send myself notes all the time for ideas for song lyrics. And then when I'm working on a song, I go through those notes looking for ideas. And I think that's what that was from. And my friend said, Kashida Gallery. He had gotten the name of some wealthy collector or something like that. I can't remember. So we called it the Kashida Gallery, and I made this poster that was very badly photoshopped. I mean, really terrible. It looked great on Instagram, but then when you redid it and blew it up, all the flaws were really apparent. And over the course of a few weeks, I quickly outgrew the limitations of the public library because the librarians working in these labs only know so much about what they're doing with that stuff. And I was already beyond pushing the envelope of what you could do with the library. But I'd go every week religiously to each location, print a poster, take it home, put it up on the fridge, which was the only spot that I could really put it up. See what the mistakes were, go into Photoshop, try to figure out how to fix the mistakes, learned a lot from that. Ended up taking a class online about digital printing. Then there were certain collages that I had made on Instagram where I had taken elements off of the internet that, other than the art, like the backgrounds. And since I didn't have the original images to work with, I went out in the real world and photographed new images for those collages. And the most important one was the Taco Bell, also in Pasadena, no, in Glendale. Taco Bell in Glendale, for the Madonna with Child at Taco Bell image. Anyway, so this went on for months. And the only video that I really made during this time was on May 21st, 2023. ASMR videos had come and gone, but the ASMR chiropractic were really taking off at this time because of the new wireless Rode microphones that the chiropractors and masseuses were attaching to their wrists with wristbands. And I really love this trend. And so I bought a hamburger and I ordered massage oil online. And I made a video where I give a hamburger with eyeballs a very slow and noisy ASMR massage until it's literally just lumps of food mashed up on the table. It's a very disturbing and weird video that nobody watched. And that, I believe, was it was one of the last videos I put any effort into, really. And again, it was way too conceptual, even for being as stupid as it could be. It was still somehow too conceptual for my audience. And I see here, I made more posters over those weeks. And then what I did, that original image, that Death of Chatterton chicken sandwich fake gallery show poster, I was kind of so in love with it. And I had some cheap color postcards printed of it, as if it was really some kind of flyer for a real show. And I went around LA. I was working as my survival job at that point was process server. So I was all over LA all the time. in and out of all kinds of offices and stuff. And I had a messenger bag with a stack of these postcards, and I put them everywhere. Every corkboard I passed, anywhere I saw flyers, anything. I went to Arcana Books, which was one of the few real art bookstores in LA, and they had a little table there when you walked in for flyers and stuff. And I put a stack of the postcards. I honestly, I put a majority of the postcards there and a bunch of stickers. And I just kept doing that as I went on and on. I mean, I started with poster number 1 on May 12th, and I was still going strong with the posters well into November of that year. So that went on for several months. I kept doing that. Meanwhile, a couple days later, on June 5th, my friend, the artist Paul Kostabi, asks for help with the computer stuff from time to time. And he said that he needed to do a catalog for an upcoming gallery show. And what he envisioned was just a spreadsheet with the title of the painting, the dimensions, and a photograph of the painting. But then he kind of muttered something about a magazine. And I think he was joking. But I was like, oh, I want to make a magazine, because I'd been doing all this Photoshop. I was obviously getting really into Photoshop again because of the posters. And I wanted to get back to InDesign, which was my first love of Adobe products. And I had not been touching InDesign at all. And I said, no, let's make a magazine. That's really great. And I made this magazine for Paul. I had already digitized his handwriting a while back for something else. And he likes to go on Instagram Live and just sort of ramble, just like I'm rambling to you now. And what I did is I recorded him rambling one day, and I put that through a transcriber, and I put it in his handwriting, and I laid that out over several pages along with the paintings for the show. And we made a little magazine, and it was really cool, and I really loved it. And I was quite proud of that little magazine. And in the course of that, I'm just looking here. Yeah, so on June 16th, 2023, I made the magazine for Paul on June 5th, or I started to. And on June 16th, I attended Art Book Fair in LA, the acid-free book fair. And I saw people selling zines. And I kind of forgot about zines, even though I just made one for Paul without thinking of it as a zine. And I was like, oh, well, I've got all these poster images that I've just done. And I'm trying to find a way to get people to understand that Fast Food Legend isn't just this dumb TikTok account that I've worked very hard to create the image of making a dumb TikTok account. Why don't I make a zine? And the zine can be like a catalog of the posters. And I didn't have the text in mind just yet. And I know that the initial text, the first issue of Fast Food magazine, which I finished on June 21st, it had very different text in it. And I cannot for the life of me remember what the text was, but it was a lot of text similar to what I'd done for Paul. And I looked at it over a few days and I said, no, this is wrong. It should have a lot less text, and it should be in my handwriting. So that's when I digitized my handwriting. And I thought maybe some kind of poetry or something like that. And then I remembered early Twitter, my favorite rock star, Kay Hanley. Every day when she'd have lunch, she'd write a haiku about her lunch. And those were her tweets. And I thought, oh, let's do haikus because this is food. Let's do haikus. And I didn't want to actually put in the effort to write the haikus. And I was also getting so heavily involved with all the AI stuff that was happening. So I trained the AI to write these sort of perfect haikus, but also that told a story. So that each issue of the magazine could tell a story and have this little, 3 lines and a picture. And it wasn't this way at first. It came out this way after the third issue. I realized each issue should be based around a different fast food chain, Pizza Hut issue, Taco Bell issue, etc. Which is why the first couple of issues are compilations of different things. And I made a few. I don't remember what I made. I probably just made 1 or 2 to begin with. And as I see at this time, I'm also still fighting with these posters, taking those classes online about, improving the print quality. And doing things like, once I realized it was going to be magazines, I went to a Wendy's just to photograph interiors of Wendy's so I could make a Wendy's issue of the magazine. I went to Pizza Hut. It was very hard to find a Pizza Hut that you could shoot indoors because most of them are takeout only. And there was one Pizza Hut left in LA that had tables and chairs that you could dine in. So I went there intentionally to photograph the interiors to create this magazine, right? And over by July 6th, I finally had, I'm guessing 3, maybe 4 magazines put together very quickly. I had prints and I had the coloring books. And I was trying to find a place to sell zines. I didn't know much about it. And there was a store in Eagle Rock called the Pop Hop that was sort of everything they sold there was made by somebody local. And I called, and they weren't sure that it was a good fit for them, but please come up and bring 1 or 2 magazines, and they'll talk about it. So that's what I did. And they were so nice. And they took the magazines on consignment, a few of them, not a lot. And they told me they're going to have a street fair for artists, and did I want to get involved in that? And here's all the information. And I did. And I paid, I think, $30 or $35. And so I had to get ready for that. I had to figure out how I was going to do that. And when I say I had prints, I had like literally 3 or 4 prints that I had made for myself and just hung on the wall just to see how they looked. I hadn't even thought about selling them yet. I wasn't there yet. So after I knew I was going to do this street market and I would need more prints and more things, I went to make some 11 by 17s. And the first thing I did was I took that KFC bucket video, that the production stills from that, and I made the KFC bucket collage on July 7th, 2023. And I was in the copy shop downtown where I do a lot of the work for the legal stuff I was doing. And they had also helped make the mock-ups for Fast Food Legend magazine, but they were very, very expensive to print there. And the woman working there was named Dean, and she helped me print the first series of small prints, 11 by 17, I believe, on cardstock in color with no bleed. With bleed, I mean. And so I was just there for a half hour or 45 minutes with I'd bring my thumb drive with me, and we'd go through whatever I had made, and she'd print stuff in random ways and, not charge me a lot of money. I mean, they were really, really nice and very kind to me. And she just seemed to like whatever it was I was doing. And so I walked out of there with a stack of prints that I was going to take home and figure out how to package to sell at this market. And that's when this thing happened to me that's never, ever happened to me before or since. I was walking from the copy shop to my car, and people literally just kept stopping me on the street, asking, like, what is that? Is that, are you, is that your art? Did you make that? What is that? And I, because I had my messenger bag, I kept handing people stickers and those postcards of the fake gallery show and saying, follow me on Fast Food Legend. And I had those business cards no, I didn't have the business cards yet. So this is why I got business cards. So, it was amazing. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before. And I took a picture of it so I'd remember it, because it was so like that Little Shop of Horrors scene with What a Strange and Unusual Plan. So very shortly after that, I realized I should have business cards to give people. And I was not sure what the business card should say. So I had business cards with the hamburger mascot on them already that said Sam Pocker, Fast Food Legend, email and phone number, that I was including with any kind of correspondence with the fast food chains or any of the places I was reaching out to try to get sponsorships and stuff like that earlier. But I didn't want to give those out because they had like my phone number and whatever. And I just wanted to have like my name, QR code, and something. And well, I put modern artist because that's what I was. That's what I wanted people to know, that I was making art. And so that's what those cards say. On July 16th, I finished the digital print production class. And I now understood that I could not possibly afford to really make the posters the way that I wanted to make them, and that I had to just keep printing them at the library or cheap places, which was frustrating because I'd very clearly outgrown it at this point. I didn't know what to do with these posters. I mean, I had no room. The side of my refrigerator was the only spot in the apartment where I could put them up, really, without framing them at least. And there were so many posters on the side of the fridge with the magnets that they would just fall down all the time. And so I just rolled a bunch of them up and threw them in the closet, which had no room. And I couldn't see the work I was making, so I had no reason to spend money having them printed correctly. I did have a couple of them framed in cheap Michaels, the kind of frames where you pop out the back yourself. But because there was such limited space, I'd have to keep rotating them. I had two frames, room for two frames in the apartment, and I was constantly taking the picture out of the frame and putting a new picture in as I came up with new ideas. The other thing that happened in the course of this was that I realized that the public library allowed you to print 10 color 8.5 by 11 pictures just on plain paper every day. And I was going to the library a lot now for all kind of stuff. So every time I was there and I'd have my messenger bag, I was printing out 10 of the images, an 8.5 by 11 color. And those were different because they actually said Fast Food Legend on them in white at, somewhere on the face of the image. And once I'd collected a good number of these on July 23rd, very late at night or very early in the morning, I don't remember, I took a can of spray adhesive and I went up and down the whole Fairfax neighborhood in LA, which had a lot of streetwear stores and hypewear stores, that kind of stuff. And I put these things everywhere. I sprayed them up everywhere. And it was kind of exciting and fun. And I have some pictures of what they look like on the street. And I really enjoyed that. But again, it was just me trying to say to people, this is more than just a stupid TikTok account. I actually do, this is something, real. I'm not doing a good job of explaining it right now, but hopefully that makes sense to somebody. I felt I was stuck. I was very, very stuck. And I didn't know what else to do. On August 1st, because of all the poster stuff, I took one of the pages from the Fast Food Legend coloring book, blew it up to a poster size, printed it as a poster at Kinko's on plain paper, and colored it in by hand. It took several hours, and it was finished the next day. And I put that up on the side of the fridge where it lived for a long time. It was just one more idea of what I could do with the fast food stuff. I'm going to pause. My throat's hurting.